We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Pod Maverick After Dark. I am Kirk Henderson, editor-in-chief over at Mavs Moneyball, and I am joined by my co-editor and longtime co-host, Josh Bowe. What's going on, man?
Early games. This
This is just such dad core.
It's 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Sorry that it was a bad Mavs game, but this is
really
otherwise.
Well. So it's funny, the 4 o'clock start time. I cannot remember another 4 o'clock start time.
Did they start? I feel like they had another early Sunday
They do
game.
a lot of mid-afternoon ones, but it's usually 1 to 2. 4 is weird.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on in Indiana today. Maybe Indiana.
Very well. Well, Indiana.
There was a concert.
Would you believe that Indiana is in the East Coast time zone?
Wait, really?
Really? Look it up on a map. It is
I should know that.
No. The only reason I know this is because I've driven across the country like 4 times, and your clock switches over, and your phone switches over when you hit. And it's like, I remember being in Indiana being like, what the fuck? It is 9:30 and it is light outside. And we're talking like PM.
I'm just saying I should know this because my real life job's headquarters is in Indianapolis. So like half the people I talk to during the day are in Indianapolis. So that's pretty fun.
Well, it's very weird. It's a weird state. Shout out to French Lick and the home of Larry Bird and the All-Star game this year. Well, the Dallas Mavericks went there on a Sunday afternoon game and proceeded to just they hung around for most of the game, hung around. They'd make some good plays, make some really horrendous, life-alteringly maddening plays, and then they'd be right back in it. It was a real yo-yo game after the first quarter. Luka Doncic looked to be the only one who was awake for a significant stretch of this game, which is kind of a bit of a role reversal, quite candidly. Like, there's usually when the Mavericks have bad games, it's because Luka's having an off game and other people are playing pretty good and they just can't keep up. And this game sort of went that way on and off. Is a very odd and kind of frustrating game to watch. Fourth quarter started with Kyrie 5 of 15 from the floor. I tweeted out something sassy like, hey, this would be a great time for Kyrie Irving to find his shot. And he made, I think, his first 4 baskets.
Mm-hmm.
Pulled the Mavericks within 4. Rick Carlisle, master of timeout momentum murder, calls the timeout. I'm pretty sure it's 104-100 with Indiana leading. They connect on 2 straight threes coming out of the timeout, and the game was effectively over at that point. They proceeded to run the Mavericks off the court as they just bombarded from beyond the arc.
Yeah, it was coming. Indiana entered the third quarter, and they're a good 3-point shooting team. They entered the third quarter 8 of 26 from 3. That's 30%. They finished 14 of 36. So they shot 6 of 10 from 3 in the fourth quarter. That was basically, I was kind of like, when the third quarter ended, I was kind of like, I think the Mavericks can win, but the Pacers are going to have to keep shooting blanks from beyond the 3-point arc, and that did not happen. So shot variance reared its ugly head in the fourth quarter for sure. But there's much deeper things we can talk about.
Yeah. There were 3 or 4 points in this game where it felt like the Mavericks had opportunities to take control, and they simply didn't. After a 7-game win streak, it's a little bit frustrating to see them go out on a bit of a dud. But again, 7-game win streak where there's a lot of good basketball played. One of the things that was kind of pointed out to me in the YouTube comments on this, where it was like, you guys were pretty grumpy for a win following the Pacers game. And really, they specifically meant me, just because of some of the complaints that I had about the game, the Phoenix game, that is. And this game was one where I didn't find myself too frustrated, if only because the things which led to the loss were very clear cut. And for a couple of role players who play, like, there were multiple Dallas role players. So your non-Kyrie Irving, non-Luka Doncic players who really played horrendous stretches of basketball in this game.
Yeah. Funny enough, the box score does not look that dissimilar from the Suns win in terms of, it was another Luka Kyrie show, but unfortunately the other things that don't always show up in the box score killed them. Turnovers were the big thing. That's what lost them this game. They had 10 turnovers against the Suns. They had 16 turnovers against the Pacers. I mean,
and who had half of those turnovers is really where the loss lies.
Yes, they 8 of the 16. I believe they had 15 individual turnovers, and the 16 was a team turnover at the end of the game. So really, true turnovers, it was 15-12. So if the Mavericks lose the turnover battle by 3, that's pretty bad, because that's kind of one of their ace in the holes. They always win the turnover battle every single game, even when they lose. They usually have less turnovers. But yeah, like you said, where they were concentrated, 8 of the 15 were PJ Washington and Tim Hardaway Jr., which is just, you just can't have that. Those guys losing the ball when they're not necessarily creating offense or creating offense for others. They're play finishers, not play starters. When your play finishers are turning the ball over a lot, that's just bad. That's bad, because you're gonna get some turnovers from Luka. You're gonna get some from Kyrie. That's just baked in. Green's probably gonna have some too, because those guys try to create and do things with the ball. With Washington and Tim Hardaway Jr., those guys should be touching the ball in situations where they are getting up good shots for the most part. And combined, not only did they combine for 8 turnovers, they shot 5 of 18 from the floor. So a disastrous performance by both of those guys.
Which guy do you want to start with? Because again, I'm trying to take some of the
blood
feedback.
is for Hardaway.
I'm trying to take some of the feedback that we get on the show seriously, because again, I appreciate our fans. I appreciate the people. We had one guy who left 3 different frustrated comments with us, and I know it's always challenging. You don't want to read too deep into any of the comments, but I also think that when it comes to customer service, sometimes your comments and the things you don't hear from the other 90% of the people. And so I don't want to be too negative, because again, it's one loss after a 7-game roadie. Yeah. But there, let's talk about PJ first, and then we can kind of come back to Tim after the break. For me, PJ simply can't do what he did tonight in terms of, if you're going to be, he was not very good on defense, and so if you're not very good on defense, and you are only, he's 1 of 6 from the floor, right?
Yep, 0 of 3 from 3.
So he started off the game with a pick and roll from Luka, or his first and only make was a really nice pick and roll floater that he hit from about 8 feet.
He's good with floaters.
And then the other shots that he got were open threes, which he missed. So, if you haven't shot a basketball in a while, guys, go stand on the side and take a shot from the side. If you're missing off the front of the rim, your shot sucks. Okay, and he missed, I want to say, 3 off the front of the rim, which in terms of fast break, that essentially kickstarts a fast break, because the ball's going long. You're all the way in the corner as a shooter, so you got 94 feet to run, and a lot of his shots were just awful looking. And
miss corner three is probably the worst type of missed shot you can have in terms of
he's gonna have to hit these shots if the Mavericks are going to go anywhere in closer games. It hasn't bit them so far because Luka and Kyrie and other players have played pretty well, but he's got to keep defenses honest. And I am having from a basketball mechanics thing. And again, this is ridiculous because these are NBA players and my experience working with my 7-year-old is not really comparable, but I've been trying to work with him with his shot. And it's very missing closer shots and hitting farther away shots for someone who was a bad shooter when I played, meaning me, is baffling to me. So watching PJ hit these above the break dribble up threes like he did I think he hit 2 against Phoenix, and then miss these wide open corner, just catch in the pocket, shoot 3-pointers is very frustrating to see. There's no other, there's simply nothing to be done about it other than to say he must hit these shots.
Yeah, when we first talked about the trade and when I wrote my piece about the trade deadline, I remember including a very specific part about how he was shooting poorly, and that was being brought up as why that was a bad trade for the Mavericks, was how poorly he'd been shooting this season and how kind of inconsistent he'd been with his three in his career. And I tried to counter that with I didn't think his three-point shooting mattered as much as the other stuff, presumably the pump-and-go drive-and-kick game that he had. Not necessarily drive and kick, but just just being able to attack closeouts, which is something that this Mavericks team in the Luka era, just their role players just haven't been able to do that for almost the entirety of the Luka era. So just having someone that can attack a closeout, score maybe a floater in the paint, get to the rim, maybe pass to the weak side to keep the offense going matters, because I felt like NBA defenses are getting too good with just letting these 3-and-D shooters shoot open threes. They're just we're going to take that away from you because we don't think you can we don't think you can hurt us when we take away your open threes.
Yeah.
So I still think that matters and I still believe in that. But the way I couched it was he still needs to make some threes. He still needs to shoot a little bit. He still needs to be a 34% shooter from three or 35. He
was 0-3 today. He needed to hit one of the ones he took.
Yes, he cannot be a sub 30% 3-point shooter. He can't, because then we're getting to the point where defenses don't even let him attack a closeout because they're not closing out to him. And then that really that's what's happening to Derrick Jones Jr. If you've noticed, he's kind of come back down to earth because teams are oh, he's not hitting all of his threes against us. Why are we even letting him drive to the basket? They're going to let him shoot. And that's kind of what they've been doing. If you've noticed, Derrick Jones Jr. has basically just stopped scoring points over the last 3 weeks. So yeah, he has to hit threes. He is, what is he in his time since he's been traded to Dallas? He is 4 of 21 from 3 in 5 games. That is not good. He is shooting under 20% from 3 for the month of February, which
the
also
shot quality, that's something we don't have access to shot quality. I may ask someone who gets who sees the second spectrum data, because I wouldn't be shocked if on his made threes he has been wide open on half. So
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not shooting well from the corners. He's not shooting well on catch and shoots. And again, I think they can get around. I don't think he needs to be elite at that. I don't even think he needs to be great or even good.
Got to keep you honest.
Average. Yeah, you just got to be average. And he's so far below average that you just can't live like that. You just can't. Yeah. He is shooting 33. I think this is before today's game. He's shooting 33% on catch and shoot threes. That's just
that's horrible.
That's not good.
This is a average, great. So I just told myself I wasn't going to read the comments as much during the video, but this one made me laugh. PJ Singh says PJ is a bust, or sorry, Prince Singh says PJ is a bust. I don't know a single Hornets fan that is sad to see him go. Prince, I don't know a single Hornets fan So congratulations to you for a wide variety of friend fandom. Okay, so we'll be give me just a second here. So, in a loss, we tend to get much fewer viewers, listeners, etc. There's only 160 people in here. But if you could do me a favor while you are watching the show, if you could go ahead and hit the like on the stream, Josh and I would appreciate that. Leave a comment to the video once it's posted. Those of you here on the live show, those of you listening, if you could subscribe, if you're coming to the podcast through the Mavs Moneyball website, subscribe. We do one of these shows after every game, and at this point in the season, I'm trying to do the secondary live show almost after every game. We're going to do one tonight. It will be a group therapy for those of you who want to get your takes off, those of you who are mad. It's much more productive to come on this show and yell than to type into the void and to get into internet arguments with folks like my friend Matt Moore. All right, if you would then watch or listen to these ads that are going to be inserted for everyone who except international fans, Josh and I will be right back.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
This episode is brought to you by Hyperice, the leader in advanced warm-up and recovery technology. They have tons of innovative products, like Venom-heated wearables to help soothe sore back muscles, Normatec compression boots to speed up recovery and increase circulation, and Hypervolt massage guns to improve mobility. Loved by athletes like Naomi Osaka and Erling Haaland. Try them yourself. Get 10% off your order with the code MOVE at Hyperice.com.
Wasn't that a great break at about the 14-minute mark? Okay, so the Tim Hardaway of it all. I have been thinking about Tim almost nonstop since the Suns game because I was just so surprised at some of the intensity of which, and granted, everybody watches the game differently, but that's what's really fun about doing these live shows is you see people, we all watch the same thing, and then often you'll take away very different items. And a lot of people didn't understand, at least during the previous live show, were very hung up on me being confused about kid playing Hardaway. And this is during the win streak, Tim has been horrid. And he, once again, this is the first game where it really bit them in the ass, and he just continues to get a lot of run. And I mean, 23 minutes, 4 of 12 shootings, 3 of 6 from 3, which meant he took 6 2-pointers,
which is usually not good. That's
not good for him. And had the 4 turnovers. And I just, one of my friends on Twitter is basically like, you and Josh always talk about his gravity. And it's like, well, we talk about it in the sense of we think he's important to the team when he's hitting, but we are also honest enough now to talk about with the team that they have. If you have Hardy, who's able to hit some threes, Josh Green, who's able to hit some threes on these real clear catch and shoot threes, not necessarily your live grenades. Kid's got to tighten the rope that he gives the guy. Like, he just can't keep playing him like this. I mean, Tim goes in, bad things happen.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, someone right before we started recording called me a homer for my Tim Hardaway Jr. takes on Twitter, and I thought that was pretty funny because I was like, can you tell other people that? That would help me out in a lot of tough situations. But yeah, he's been bad, and I know everyone is out for blood, and I'm not going to try to sit here and have that conversation again. We're talking about his gravity because they lost. They lost by 20. They looked bad when he was on the floor. He made 4 shots. He had 4 turnovers. For a player like him, who again is a play finisher, not a play starter, that's egregious. Like, he just You cannot turn the ball over that many times, and while you're also missing 8 out of your 12 shots, he's shooting about 32% from 3 in the month of February. He's shooting like 35% overall. He's averaging about 10 points a game. Like, he's been bad. The funny part is, like, me and you have never, when we talk about Tim's value to the team, it's always been his volume 3-point shooting.
Yep.
Like, me and you have been on the same page that he is one of the most harmful defenders on the team.
Yes.
And he's been like that since he's been here. Like, he occasionally gives some good effort in some one-on-one situations, but as a team defender, like working within a team concept and making rotations,
he manages to make the wrong
scheme,
choice almost every time.
Yeah, he is. Watch Tim Hardaway Jr. off ball on defense. It is not pretty. If he's not taking a charge, he is not doing a lot.
If there was a thought bubble above his head, it would be going fuck.
Yeah,
because his timing's usually off. He's either delayed a step or he goes the wrong place, or he ends up kind of because he ended up on the Pacers' best player a lot when he was on the floor tonight.
You think that was by design?
Oh yeah,
Rick Carlisle.
That was Rick Carlisle. Micro targeting. Timmy.
There was a funny possession in I think it was the first half, and I saw Kyrie Irving was guarding Mathurin, and Mathurin is a very young, talented scorer, and I was like, why are you putting Kyrie on him? And then he made a pass to the corner to Nembhard, who was wide open, and Tim is standing like 20 feet away, and Tim was guarding Nembhard. I was like, oh, I guess that's why, because you don't want Tim on Mathurin. And the Mavericks are getting into these situations where, Tim is playing a lot of minutes with either Kyrie or Luka, or all three of them are playing a lot together. And it's just, when Tim's making threes, you can get away with that. But if he is not making shots, the minutes he plays next to the two stars, like, his bad defense just compounds upon itself.
Yep.
Because even with Luka's better effort, and with whenever Kyrie, chip, whatever you want to say about Kyrie's defense, like, having all three of those guys on the floor at the same time, if you are not out shooting and outscoring the other team, there's going to be some problems. And I think you saw that in the second half and in the fourth quarter. Like, he's just, there's people that are smarter than me about this stuff that tell me that Tim is not that toxic of a defender, and he's at best, like an average defender. And
no, he's not.
I don't see it. So, like, when I defend Tim, it's the volume 3-point shooting. Like, the defense is bad. There was a comment, granted, it's like 3 weeks old, and I'm not, this is not a slight or an argument, but sometimes I read through other Dallas media folks mention sometimes, and I was watching the Ticket's Bob Sturm debating with somebody about Tim's Hardaway's defense, and he said, well, NBA people have told me that he's average. He's just fine. And folks are arguing back, and I sent that to a couple of different people that I know that do this for a living. Basically cover the NBA, analyze. We're just doing multiple like different things as we try to watch these games. And the person said back to me, "That's just proof you can get NBA people to tell you anything," which made me laugh. Tim tries hard. So that, the thing about Tim
effort is not the point at a certain point.
There are two types of bad defenders: ones that choose not to defend, and ones that don't know how to defend. And I think Tim is the latter.
Yes,
which is a little because I don't know how you fix that. Like, he's been in the league long enough to know better about this stuff. So, that's not good. And the Mavericks had 15 assists and 15 turnovers. When was the last time this team did not have more assists than turnovers?
Pacers had 38 assists, in case you were curious. Shout out to my man Henry. He sent us a $5 donation.
Wow, awesome!
I don't know if you saw that in there. He said THJ needs to play in Bangladesh. Kid needs to be buried under the American Airlines Center. It doesn't matter how much we improve this roster, we still get outcoached. That was a pretty funny comment. I like that one. Henry comes on the live show sometimes too, so thank you, Henry. It's very kind of you. But beyond those two players, you kind of go through everything else. There was a lot of things that happened tonight that were very different. Friend of the show, Bobby Corrales, said that where's my cell phone? He basically told me that kid switched Carlisle basically willingly switched people onto Luka and Kyrie all night long.
Yeah, there was not a lot for them in the pick and roll.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And
they were
that
letting
really,
those guys score.
Yeah, and that really seemed to jank up the offense to a degree. I mean, this was I think collectively in the last several weeks, Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford's like worst combined output. They had 12 points and 8 rebounds between them. Lively did have 4 steals, which was interesting. Gafford, of course, he got credited with 1 late block, but they were effectively neutered, and it was very painful watching Miles Turner, local product. He went to your high school, scored 32. How many points did the man have? 33 points. Good Lord.
Season high. I believe.
He was, let's see here. He hit 8 2-point shots.
Yes.
Like that's just, you're going to lose.
He was 3 of 3 from mid-range.
He wasn't that good from 3. Like where it felt like he killed people from 3. He's 2 of 7 from 3.
No, he made a lot of mid-range. He made like, I called it to our friend Austin. We were talking about it before we started recording. I called him like pop a shot mid-range jumpers. Like they were so open, like those little free throw. And you know, he's a big guy with long arms. So like when he shot those little free throw line jumpers, it really did look like he was shooting like a pop a shot ball because it was just so easy and effortless. So like anytime he set a screen and kind of rolled, but didn't roll all the way and kind of stopped right around the free throw line, there was no one there. No one there to guard him.
Yeah.
So they executed their pick and roll game to a T. Yeah, the Lively thing's interesting. There's kind of 2 things with Lively. I don't know which one to talk about first, but defensively, you know, this is kind of a pattern for him against teams that have bigs that can shoot. His defensive impact just isn't the same. He did have 4 steals tonight, which was nice.
He started challenging shots better in the second half.
As the game went on, yeah.
He in transition, he would do the classic. This is what you're taught from the time you're 8 years old on, when you're the biggest kid on the team. You run your butt back and you get in front of the rim.
Yeah.
And there were 2 different times when he's doing that. And Miles Turner just stops at the 3-point line and shoots the 3-point. And he was like, oh, he did a much better job of getting back on defense and then getting out to the 3-point line when he played in the second half. But ultimately, it just didn't matter.
Yeah. And the other thing, and so we'll see, like that's one of those things where it's like, it's a thing, but he just turned 20 and he did not guard Miles Turner types in college.
No, or ever.
Yes. So he's just going to get used to that with more time. And I think he's got quick enough feet that like he might not be someone you always want to guard stretch bigs like all the time, but he will get better at that as time goes on and he gets more reps. The other thing with Lively is this is now his 3rd straight game under double figure scoring. 2nd straight game where he's only taken 3 shot attempts. I'm kind of thinking about it. Do you see something offensively where do you feel like teams are kind of like, okay, we're kind of tired of these Lively, like easy lobs and dunks in the pick and roll with Luka? Like it feels like there's been a shift from opposing defenses that are like, I don't care if Luka scores a little runner in the lane, like no more Lively lobs, like no more Lively.
I think there's something to that. Like there's a gentleman in the chat just talked about how he thinks Luka needs to distribute the ball more and get people involved earlier, which I always think is a discussion worth having. But if Luka's getting these close shots, they're daring. Like Luka's, I argue with people about this all the time. Luka's first instinct is to pass the ball. He can score at will. He has 35 points a game. He's leading the NBA in scoring. But I'm telling you, he wants to make the highlight pass. But he will take the shot if it's there, obviously. And I think there's something to this, about what they're doing early in games. I mean, I'm reading in the comments that Jason Kidd said in postgame that they need to get Kyrie Irving. Like, he needs to have the ball earlier more. Okay, fine. Like the Mavericks do maybe need to mix it up a little bit with some of their attack. But, the problem is when you win 7 games in a row, when you score 35 points a game, you're going to be loath to try something new, because why would you try something new when it works? And so I think that there's something to what you're saying about they're limiting these pick and roll opportunities a little bit more.
I don't disagree that he needs, like, everyone wants to see Luka pass to his teammates and get them involved. But like today, like, I don't like, well, is he supposed to pass to people that aren't open? Like,
frankly, like, there was a lineup at one point where Kid had Luka, Tim, Derek Jones Jr., I'm pretty sure it's PJ Washington, and Maxey on the floor. The only person other than Luka who will take an open shot, like kind of willingly, was Hardaway. And so it's these sort of things, when you lose a game, you want to overanalyze everything. I do that, Lord knows. And Kid was just really reaching because nothing was working. Their pick and roll coverage was garbage across the board. I swear to Christ, I love Josh Green. He played a pretty good game today, but someone, Panda Hank, needs to make a supercut of that guy hitting a screen. He just dies on high screen and rolls. He cannot get over them. It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating.
He can't, but the one thing I'll say, because I know people get mad, but I'll just counter that with saying at least he is doing something on the other end of the floor to at least mitigate it, because that's been a thing all season. Because earlier in the season, he was scoring 14 points across 4 games and also having that issue with screen navigation. Now, he is a very confident offensive player now. He's been pretty awesome for since January, since about the first week of January till now. He's been shooting. He's shooting 56 and 50, 56, 50, 93 in the month of February, which is pretty crazy. But not to, I agree with you. His screen navigation, that's got to be his summer.
It's a specific complaint related to their defense, not so much about how his play as a whole, but you get killed on that first screen. You were just talking about, what are defenses doing differently to where Luka is not able to get downhill and throw this easy lob? Like Luka, and granted, some of this might be on Luka because of how he's using the screens, but it's rarely do defenders ever die on screens like that when Luka has the ball. I never see it in comparison to what I see Josh do, where he just is right into a screen and then it's where did that come from?
Yeah,
it is what it is. Green mostly played a very good game. It's just the downhill effects of getting hung up on a screen like he does and like Hardaway does is really bad to the defense.
Yeah, because you don't want to rotate when you don't need to rotate. Rotations are not great when you got, because you're basically playing 4 on. You go through it. It's who else? You just can't cover everyone.
Gafford can't really guard in space. Okay.
Ooh, he had a bad defensive game today.
Right. So it's the whole things went downhill so quickly and they just didn't have any answer. And the answer was to try different lineups involving Maxey and some of their defensive players, but then their offense was crap.
Maxey really played 25 minutes. So I don't think anyone, probably the minutes, if you're looking at minutes, probably would have given Lively more than 14, because I think he was starting to figure some things out. And then, Timmy playing 23 is hard on a night where he's not giving you anything on offense. And then you combine that with PJ playing 31. His defense was okay. Siakam didn't have he was guarding Siakam for most of the day, and Siakam was fine, not amazing. But it was just, it was just a tough game all the way around. It really felt like kind of Luka and Kyrie fighting against the tide, the rising tide.
Right.
And they just didn't, outside of Green, they just had nothing. No one had really anything.
I wouldn't be shocked if we were to go look at the Pacers record against the Mavericks since Carlisle left, and it's probably pretty good. He's good in these single game situations. Look at the Mavericks getting up on the Clippers several years ago. Rick Carlisle is an outstanding basketball coach. Is what it is. I don't know. I'm not. This road trip is going to be very, all right. So the Mavericks come out from All-Star break. This is, bigger picture talk, and then we'll go for the night. The Mavericks come out from All-Star break, and they beat the Suns in a game where there were just enough pivot points that the Mavericks crushed the Suns. It really felt like in hindsight, the Mavericks beat the crap out of Phoenix, but there were points in that game where the Suns rallied back only for the Mavericks to kind of step on them. And so when you have 2 more days of no Mavericks playing, there's been kind of a significant discussion about Luka Doncic and the hunt for the MVP, as well as the Mavericks making a play for 4, 5, or 6 seed, out, basically higher than they are right now, which they might have slipped back to 7th. I've not looked since they lost, but I'm pretty sure they're still ahead of Phoenix because Phoenix has played one more game. It's very frustrating because I just sort of want to take this season as it is. And my goals for the season, my goals as a fan were always, I hope the Mavericks make the playoffs and I hope they can maybe make it to the second round. But when Luka scores 35 points, grabs like 9 rebounds and 9 assists, it starts to change the math. And a lot of, Tim Legler has become like the biggest Luka Doncic fan. And as a result of that, I think our fan base has really jumped onto the notion that Luka needs to be in the top 3 of the MVP discussion just because of, if you look at, past MVPs, notably Jokic in 2021 or 2020, 2021, and then Russell Westbrook, and I think it was 2016. There's an interesting, strong case for it, despite the fact that the Mavericks are lower in seeding. And then you add in the fact that the Mavericks have had so many starters miss games that a lot of Dallas fans don't think Luka's getting a fair shake in this discussion. I sort of waffle on it, not because I don't care. Like, I would love it if Luka would win MVP. Like, that would frankly just be great for us. Because
it would be really good for us.
Really good for us. Like, you get all.
That's why it's always funny when people get mad at us if we talk bad about the team.
Right, like when the Mavericks win, it's good for us.
Yes, they need to win. We want to stick around. They need to win.
Yeah, and I sort of settled, and I wanted to get your take on this before we go. I've sort of settled on the fact that, one, I want everybody that's having these conversations to really understand that our conversations as fans and to a certain extent media simply do not influence the vote whatsoever. It is Luka's play, and it is wins and losses. I want to know your sort of thoughts on him in the MVP race, as well as what do you think is a realistic outcome with these 25 games to go?
Yeah. So I thought before the 7-game win streak, I thought he was pretty much on the outside looking in terms of even being maybe being like 5th. I thought his individual production, frankly, since his second season has been good enough to be MVP. It's just historically, and this is kind of unique to the NBA in a way. I think NFL maybe is a little bit like this too, but in baseball, MLB, like MVP almost always just goes to like the best player.
Yes.
Even if it's on a team that misses the playoffs. But
yep.
NBA MVP has historically always gone to a guy that's on the top 4 team in either conference, usually top 3 team in either conference. It's like best player on best team or one of the 5 best teams, usually. That's usually how it goes. And, of course, there's Westbrook's triple-double season, which was big because he was the first player to average a triple-double since Oscar Robinson, like for a very long time. So that was a very historic season. And then Jokic on the 6th-seeded Nuggets because, his whole team died and he had a really, really, really good season. Obviously, Luka's had a really good season as well. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's been really good. Jokic is still really good too. Like, he's still playing like the best basketball player on the planet. Like, Giannis has been quietly like averaging 30 plus on 60% shooting. Like, he's basically like new age Shaq. So there's a lot of good players now. So it's tough, but with Luka, I think the 7-game win streak got him back into that maybe top 3. But again, all this is like, does it matter if he's like only one person wins? Like, how much do you care if he's 3rd versus 4th or 2nd versus 5th? Like, that part always seems a little silly to me. Like, it should be about who wins. That's the part you should care about. And I know now people think that he should just win outright. And I don't really blame people for thinking that because he's having a ridiculous season. He's probably going to finish as the leading scorer in the NBA. And he's doing it on really good efficiency, and he's doing it as almost averaging a triple-double. Like, he's awesome. They need to get into that 4 or 5 range, I think, for him to legitimately have a case and kind of stem the tide. And when you consider how good all the other players are, like if this was just a weaker season, he would probably be running away with it. But there's just a lot of good teams and there's a lot of good players. Like, it's just really tough.
Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been amazing, and Mavs fans don't want to hear that. He has been. Sorry.
Yeah, like I think if you had put a gun to my head and was like, who would you rather have on your basketball team right now, Luka or Shai? I would say Luka, but that Shai has been a two-way force on a team that's might win the Western Conference. Like that's kind of the profile for MVP. Like I'm sorry. The big thing with Luka though, and I think this is what's causing people because it feels like it's getting a little nuttier about this, and people are really emotional about it.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's driving everyone a little batty is that Luka, if you look historically, most of the greatest players of all time, when they won MVP, they did it when they were either 24 or 25. I think LeBron, MJ won it when they were 24. Steph won it when he was
older. Steph didn't come in the league when he was older.
Yeah, Giannis won it when he was 24, but no one wins it before that usually. And I think what's crazy, and Luka is 24. He turns 25 in about 3 days. So historically, timeline-wise, like he has not been shafted for the award if you're just looking at great players at his age. What gets really fuzzy about all this is also just at age 20, no one was as good as Luka Doncic. But 21-year-olds don't win MVP. No. But also 21-year-olds don't play as good as Luka has.
And they don't sit at the top of the fan. Odds are determined basically on the money that's coming in.
Yeah.
And he's been at the top of the MVP voting since to start the season, not voting, odds, because people want him to win it.
Yeah, he's been all NBA first team 4 out of his first 5 seasons, and like only 2 or 3 other players have done that ever. Like Luka is just an extraordinary outlier in terms of his production, how quickly he's been producing and putting up these crazy numbers. So in one way, it kind of feels like because Luka has been doing this now for 5 seasons, he almost feels like a 10-year, like it feels like he's been in the league forever guys that usually produce at this level don't start doing this until they're 26, 27, 28.
No, I saw one of those weird Facebook. Yeah. I get all sorts of fan posts suggested to me in my Facebook algorithm just because of what I look up on the internet. And Luka's, some of the milestones he's crossed, he crossed one that at the current point in the career, the only 2 other players had similar stats as Oscar Robertson and LeBron James. There's just no other Luka is sitting here doing stuff that hasn't been done before. Jokic came on a little bit later, but Jokic will also probably have a shorter career because Lord knows the man might not want to play basketball. Luka's going to be, if Luka decides to play long enough, which I don't think he will, he has the opportunity to really challenge some of the record book stuff that I didn't think anybody would come close to just because of player longevity. It's not what guys might play for 18 years now, but if you only play 55 games a year, you're not going to do the shit that Dirk Nowitzki and LeBron James did.
Yeah, for sure. But Lucas as a 20-year-old, his second season, he averaged 28.8 points, 9.4 rebounds, 8.8 assists. And he's
That's not a thing.
Yeah. LeBron didn't do that. Michael Jordan didn't do that. And I think people are looking at the stretch basically since his second season to now. And they're this is not only amazing stretch of 5 seasons. This is maybe the 5 bet. No one's had a 5-season stretch almost like this, in the history of the NBA. And he's doing it from age 20 to 25. And you're how has he not won MVP yet? And then again, 24, about to turn 25. Right. So it becomes this tug of war where it's objectively, he has so much more time. He's got at least 5-6 years that you can consider elite all NBA prime minimum. He could have it longer depending on how his game ages and his body ages. And so it's I just don't feel like it's unfair that he hasn't won MVP yet.
No.
On the other hand, I don't blame Mavs fans or Luka fans for going nuts for looking at what he does year after year after year and be well, what's it going to take?
Right. This will be his 5th straight year making first team All NBA,
and it being pretty conclusive too. Not
a question.
Not a lot of question. Yeah. So I get it. I get both sides of it. Not to try to take the middle end of it, but the answer is what's it going to take is the Mavericks. They have to finish top 3 or top 4. If this team can somehow get into the top 4, he will win MVP. I will stake everything I own in my life that if this team is top 4 in the West, that he will win MVP this season. And if it doesn't happen, maybe it happens next season because maybe they can finally get off to a good start with a roster that seems to kind of fit and do some things. Despite the fact that they lost this game, they still look like a better team over the last month. So, so we'll see. It's just weird. We've never seen a player like Luka, really.
Then you run into like comments like this. Dallas is doing a serious job to destroy Luka's career if they don't start winning. I'm like, my brother in Christ, they are above 500 and then the playoff race. They have made the playoffs every year, but Luka's first year and then last year where everybody and their uncle was hurt. They thought JaVale McGee was a solution. Like, this is the sort of stuff that I see everywhere. And I see it everywhere because frankly, most NBA fans don't watch the games. They don't do what we do night in and night out. They watch highlights, they watch little bits of stuff, and then they can't figure out any, and they listen to stuff. And the discussion kind of gets perpetually more insane. Like, I always say this, and I will continue to say it. Luka is a first ballot basketball Hall of Famer if he gets Thanos snapped right now.
He was if he got Thanos snapped before he even entered the NBA.
He might have been.
It's a basketball Hall of Fame. Not
basketball Hall of Fame. And you go it's like this is a side discussion, but I was having a discussion with people. It's like, well, Wemby's a winner. He's a winner. And it's like,
the Spurs stink.
Like, the Spurs stink, and go to Wemby's Wikipedia page. What the hell has that man won? He jumps from team to team to help his own development. He doesn't win shit. Doesn't mean he won't, but
that's
like
okay,
Luka,
because that's the whole point. It's okay.
Luka's such it's like disturbing how decorated he is as a player. And a lot of NBA and American fans don't particularly care about those sorts of like overseas things, but I'm sorry. But the Dallas-Fort Worth area has a bigger population than Slovenia, and he took them to the Olympic, the game before the finals. They won the 2017 was it Euro Cup?
Eurobasket or whatever.
Eurobasket.
Yeah.
Like, these things are monumental achievements at a basketball level. Like, it's so when part of why I get sort of like, I don't really care whether Luka wins MVP is because, number one, I think he'll win it one day anyways, because it's like, if we're candid, the 2007 MVP that Dirk won, he had the exact same numbers as the year before. He had the exact same number the years after.
His team won 67 games.
They won 67 games. And like, that was the year Kobe Bryant was going scorched earth. Like, in a slower paced era was scoring a bajillion points. And it's like, it's not that I don't want to take away Dirk's MVP. I'm just saying sometimes compared to football, like in the NFL, they would have to rename the MVP the Patrick Mahomes trophy. Only they can't give it to Patrick Mahomes every year, so they're going to give it to somebody else. That's just the way these things go sometimes. At least this year, the MVP race is genuinely fascinating because with 25 games to go and Embiid getting knocked out, I think you could make a convincing case for 4 different guys. I really do. I mean, a lot of Mavs fans are like poo-pooing Kawhi Leonard's numbers. That man is a death machine.
If you're poo-pooing Kawhi's numbers, I hope the Mavericks do not face the Clippers again in the first round.
No, I don't want. Though it would be very like hero's journey stuff. It would be kind of amazing.
Yeah, if they can vanquish the Clippers, but yeah.
So I think what we're going to do over the next 25 games is I do want to talk about Luka and Kyrie more. I do want to continue to talk about them more. Some interesting feedback I got where it's like, you guys really talk about some of the other players more than them. Problem with Luka and Kyrie talking about them too much is I like at a certain point, it's like, what else is there to say? Like, Luka and Kyrie are freaking awesome. So It's like, you just want to lead, like, do I want to lead every show with, man, look how amazing Luka and Kyrie was? We probably should. It would probably be better for us. It's not really what we do, though. So we'll try, though, because I really do. I want to put more emphasis on some of the things that, like, because, like, Kyrie's first quarter tonight just couldn't find the bottom of the net. Still got to the line, I think, for 8 free throws. Luka Doncic was the only other player. I mean, I would put him as even more awake than Kyrie because Kyrie's shot was just weird in that first quarter. I think it was like 2 for 7 from the floor. Just like a lot of like weird, like shots just wouldn't fall. That happens sometimes. Luka played a great game, more or less. Kid left him in the game to play through a defensive slog where he turned into mush.
That was not good.
That was not good.
Stretch.
Like whenever there's just elements of this where I'm like, we'll talk. I'm sure in the second post game show, we'll talk about Kidd. But there's a lot where I'm just like, man, I don't know how these dudes deal with him in game because it just doesn't look like he does much some games, though he did in the Phoenix game, and I was wrong about that. So, anyways, we've been talking for almost 50 minutes. You got anything else you want to get out?
No, not really. I just be nice to each other on the internet if you can.
Yeah,
there's these 2 days off, man. It's too much time. It's too much time.
Well, the MVP stuff makes people toxic. It's just it makes them insane because it's like they
everyone
don't
insane.
Insane. Each race is an individual race. And when you call back to previous year stuff, I just sort of want to note to everybody that that doesn't matter. Like, I wish it did for context, but it doesn't. And so as a result, I just want to choose to walk away from some of this stuff. It's not fun. I want to enjoy watching Luka scoring 35 points a game. I want to enjoy watching Irving shoot 17-foot bank shots when he pulls up off a dime. Like, that's just so much more fun than arguing, the ridiculous numbers that are out there, the stuff that I don't understand at a high level. Basketball's supposed to be fun, and if it's not having fun when you're talking about it, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, so I'll be right back with the second show. You guys should hang out if you got thoughts, and we'll talk for a little bit of time, and then we can go enjoy the rest of our Sunday night. Are you going to do anything interesting with your free time?
I don't know, because we got the recap is already on the site. I've already edited and scheduled our stats post. I don't know, man. I might eat a slice of old birthday cake and call it a night.
That's right. That's good stuff, man. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking this much to me. You guys are the best. Everybody hanging out in the show, hang out for a few more minutes. We'll come back and talk. Those of you listening on the audio stream, we'll be back with a group therapy at some point on Monday afternoon for your stream. Thanks so much. And Josh will be gone, and then I'll be back in less than a minute. Bye, guys.